Thank you. Call to order, Bedford Township Planning Commission regular meeting, January 13th, 2021. If you could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Garvin, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Anger,
Here.
Mr. Fritz,
Here.
Mr. Helm,
Here.
Mr. Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Garvig's here, and I think we're waiting for Mr. Mahoney. Is that correct, Ken?
That is correct. He said he may be a few minutes getting signed in. So.
Yes. So we have a lot of people in the lobby. We will have you answered when we get to your section, just so you know. Thank you, George. So the first item is election of the Planning Commission officers. Karen, do you want to take the lead on this?
Well, what we will do is we'll take a motion for the offices, and then for someone, if they will accept, and then we would vote on it. We are going to have a chair. This is an annual task that we have to take care care of, a new chair. Not necessarily a new chair, but we have to reappoint a chair, a vice chair, a secretary, and then a representative to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that will have to take place. I don't know in what order you want to do this. Shall we, do you want to start with the secretary first, and then work up to the chair, or how do we want to do it?
I'm okay with starting with the secretary.
Okay, so it's open to a nomination.
I'd like to nominate Joe Garbrick to remain secretary, if he would have it.
I'll accept.
Do I have support?
I'll support.
Support.
All right, Mr. Garbrick, can you take the roll on that?
As Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Garvick, yes. Mr. Mahoney in yet?
Doesn't appear he's on yet, but we will go ahead and just make note that he's not here for this at the moment.
Okay.
Do we need just the four for this as well?
4.
All right. So that does make 4 with Joe. So Joe will be our secretary. Motion
Okay.
approved.
Okay,
Is that correct?
and we do have Ron Fritz, so that's 5.
Oh, yes. I don't see him on the thing, so I. Sorry, Ron. I do know you're there.
Well, that's all right.
So then, do we want to do vice chair?
Sure.
I'd like to nominate Ron Fritz to serve as vice chair.
I'll second
I
it.
accept.
I have support from Joe, it sounded like. And then if you could take the roll on that, Mr. Garvick?
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Garvick votes yes.
All right. Motion carried. Ron will be vice chair. Do we want to move on to chair?
Yes, I think we should move on to chair.
I'll make a motion that Matt Engler to remain as chair.
Support.
I would like to nominate Brad Helm as chair.
Support.
I'd like to nominate Matt Engler. Or support.
Who are we going with here? We have several.
I
Brad,
think
did
that-
you accept?
I have not. no.
Karen, did Brad accept?
I don't know that any of them have accepted.
Matt, you do such a good job.
I don't mind doing it. I know that we discussed possibility of the, Karen, go ahead. Maybe explain it.
Our situation is that we need appeals, and we only have 3 members that can serve, because you have to serve 2 full years on the planning commission in order to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Those 3 members would be Matt, Joe, and Ron. And now that Ron and Joe are filling other offices with the planning commission, the only person we have left now that can serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals would be Matt.
And I can't do both, correct?
That is correct. So, we we need to,
So the pressure's on.
the pressure's on.
We'll break you in softly, Brad.
Want to accept, to be honest, so, but if we have to, you know, because if that's the last choice.
Our only other
Karen?
option would be, Pat Mahoney. Once he, he's not here to state if he would consider, we can't nominate Rick because he's the township board rep. And, Dennis is, at this point, has not intended to, stay past January, only because they have not been able to fill the position at this time. And we don't know at this point who our other member would be. I don't know, Marty, is it possible if Brad is not, to wait for Pat to see if he's willing?
You're muted.
You're muted, Marty.
If you want to move on to determining who the liaison to the BZA would be, you can do that. You can maybe defer the chairman's selection until you have everybody appear. I mean, Pat, for example, Matt would just continue running the meeting until a new chairman is selected.
So we'd skip over it then and come back to it between.
Come back to it when Pat is here.
Okay, we will table it for now. So we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. If there's no additions, I will entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in
Support.
favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. The agenda is approved. Next, we move on to approve the minutes of the December 16th, 2020 meeting. For anybody that was here for that, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Next, we move on to public comment. This is for the public. If there's anything you'd like to talk about that's not part of the public hearings on items that will already be discussed later, this is for your time now. Yeah, yes, Karen.
George, we have a list of the numbers we're expecting this evening for the applicants. If you see the public comment portion of the agenda that pops up, we may want to admit them to see if they're waiting to speak at the public hearings or during public comment. So we already know who the applicants' representatives are. We just don't know if someone else is calling in.
Yes, you're on the planning commission. Are you for the public comment or part of the public hearings?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
This is for the Lewis and Smith rezoning.
Okay, right now we're on the public comment. So when we get to that, if you could call back, that would be great.
Okay, so how would I know when it's public comment time?
I will open the public hearing for that item.
Okay.
That's an applicant.
What was the number, George? What's the phone number?
7.
Hi, are you here calling for the public comment, or are you here for calling for one of the public hearings?
Public comment. My
Okay.
name is Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. And I'm calling regarding the issue of the if I'm reading this right, it's a reapproval. If we could kind of have an explanation of that, so to speak. I'm opposed to that little subdivision opening up onto Jackman Road. I see the person's already started the drive, but in light of the fact that that's coming out right in front of the Alliance Church, opening up right into the library, and it's on Jackman Road with the bus traffic. If you note, even at Dean and Jackman Road there, you're not even allowed to turn right on the light, and it's because of the intensity of the traffic. I really do question why that cannot be opened up into the development that has two drives already on Dean Road. That would probably be more conducive, but since I can't see the drawing, and I don't know if it's prohibited from them coming out into that the rest of that subdivision, which doesn't really make sense. But having it come out there really doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And then there's the church that's up on Temperance Road as well, right there at Jackman. So to me, that's just adding an awful lot of intense traffic on a road that's already got a lot of issues because of the buses. And that's all my comment is on that at this time. So for the rest of the public stuff, I'll call in if need be.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, you're on the planning commission. Are you here for the public comment or part of the public hearing? Hi, you're on the planning commission. Are you here for the public comment or part of the public hearings? Can you hear me? Is there someone on the line right now?
Hang on.
Hello, you're on the planning commission. Are you here for the public comment or the part of the public hearings?
Part of the public hearing.
Right now we're on public comment and I have not opened any of the public hearings yet. So if you could call back when I open the public hearing that you would like to speak on.
What can we public comment on? The zoning change?
Right now you can, anything that's not part of the public hearings tonight. So you can comment on anything or on our agenda, the sign waiver or the reapproval.
Okay, hang on just a second. I gotta call you back.
Okay.
I wanted to comment on the zoning change for the.
That one is a public hearing. So if you want to call back when I open item B.
How do I know when you're opening item B?
The
How do I get on this?
Buckeye Cable. Okay. So George will, if you just hang up and then call back, he'll put you in the lobby and then we'll come to you. He has your phone number down, so we'll know which one's you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. Hi, welcome to the Planning Commission. Are you here for the public comment or one of the public hearings tonight? Are you here for the public comment tonight or for one of the public hearings? Caller, are you there? I don't think we have anyone here, George. All right. Next, we will move on to new business.
Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Karen.
I see Pat is now. Do we want to move back to the election of the chair?
Yes, do we want, would you explain to Pat what our situation is?
Pat, we have already appointed Joe Garvick to remain as the secretary, Ron Fritz to remain as the vice chair. What we have is a situation where the only one that is qualified left now as the members of the Planning Commission to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals is Matt Anger, who currently is serving as the chair. Due to the requirement of 2 years service on the Planning Commission to serve on the BZA as a liaison, Planning Commission liaison. That leaves you and Brad Helm. Brad Helm was nominated, but he has not accepted. He would rather wait to see if you would possibly be interested. So that's where we are right now. So I will leave it to the Planning Commission now to move forward if so desired to make a different, another choice.
So my question to you, Pat, would you entertain the thought of being the chair?
Yes.
All right, so I will nominate Pat Mahoney to be chair.
Second.
Support.
I think I heard Ron Fritz first.
Yeah.
Mr. Garvick, can you take the roll call, please?
Mr. Helm,
Yes,
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Garvick, yes. Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
All right, we have Pat Mahoney as chair.
So Pat Mahoney will now take over chairing this meeting.
Okay. Baptism by fire. Are we on new business?
We still have to do the BZA, just so you know.
Yes. So now we have to nominate a representative. It's a recommendation to the township board for Matt. He's the only one left that can serve. So, but we have to. It's for
I
Matt.
can make a recommendation
Is there a
for
nomination?
Matt. Yes.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? The aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
And those not in favor? And the ayes have it. Matt, you are the BZA rep.
Recommendation.
I'll get the hang of this. Okay.
Yes,
Are we on new business now?
Yes.
we are on A now because we got through the other stuff.
All right, so new business item A, request for a sign waiver in an agricultural zoning district for Raymond and Ella Nussbaum on parcel number 5802-017-024-00, otherwise known as 9700 Secor Road, Temperance, Michigan, 48182. Okay, do we go right to the phone, George, or what do we do? Discuss?
Usually Karen will give the background.
Okay, Karen?
Okay. Again, the applicant is Raymond Nussbaum, and the sign company is TV Liquidators. And the owner, again, Raymond Nussbaum Farms, currently agriculturally zoned. The applicant is seeking to install an agricultural produce sign to include an LED message board at 9700 Secor Road, which is the location of Nussbaum Farm. The ordinance permits an agricultural produce sign no larger than 20 square feet in area in an agricultural zoning district, and if a freestanding sign shall not exceed 4 feet in height, and that's under section 419.22. The applicant is seeking to display a 53-inch by 28-inch sign, which is 10.31 square feet, to include an LED message board. While the proposed sign meets the permitted square footage and height requirements, a waiver is required to allow for an LED message board per section 419 1922. And it states no flashing, moving, oscillating, or intermittent type of illuminated sign or display shall be permitted in any zoning district. Therefore, the Planning Commission shall determine how often the message can change so not to create a safety issue by distracting passing traffic. Should the request be considered, the following waivers are required to approve an LED message board for an agricultural produce sign, and also all required permits shall be obtained from the building department. The applicant shall continue to maintain an entire perimeter landscape area of the base no less than 2 feet wide, growing and in healthy condition. Should a monument sign be installed, it's not required for a temporary sign, and the sign must be located outside of the road right-of-way. And I believe the applicant is on the line.
Yeah.
Okay, go right to the caller. Yeah, we have the caller ready to go.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, state name and address, and you can start.
Okay, well, my name is Teresa Nussbaum. I am Raymond's daughter. I live here with them. I just wanted to, better the sign situation out front, one sign that listed all the produce that we sell and what we sell. I just thought it would be it would look a lot nicer. And I will follow all guidelines that I need to pull, permits or whatever I need to pull to have a sign. I have no problem with that.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Karen, I
Karen?
have a question. I don't know if it be to her or you. It says on page 1 of 1, may I have it reviewed both ways, movable and stationary?
Well, I didn't know, because at first she told me the agricultural sign had to be, during the off season had to be taken away. But if the sign I have, it really, is more of a stationary sign. But we do sell things all year round, so it's not like a, I wasn't sure,
So which one would you like? You would like to have the stationary if it was allowable?
Yes, a stationary sign out front, yes. Because I have eggs and I have wood.
If I may.
Okay, Karen.
She's looking for a permanent sign, and it is permissible as long as she does not exceed what is permitted by ordinance. The Planning Commission, because it's not being utilized for produce or goods that are being produced on the site, typically it would be removed. If it's going to be a permanent sign, the Planning Commission may want to consider, if not in use, if it's going to be a permanent sign, rather than to remove the sign, that the sign not be illuminated to advertise any sales.
Karen, I have a question. Does she have to come back for permission for the size design of the sign, or if she falls within the limits in the ordinance, does she need to do that? How does that work?
If she meets the requirements of the sign ordinance, she will not have to come back. The reason she is here this evening is because an LED reader board or message board is not permitted by ordinance at this time. So that is the only thing she is seeking. The sign size is permitted by ordinance. We would just take a look at what type of base she's going to install and make sure it doesn't exceed the height requirements and the square footage requirements. A base is calculated differently. We already know that the sign size is, she's permitted 20 square feet, where she is proposing 10.31 square feet of signage area.
And what about the message change? Did we agree on something a few months back? There was a church north up Lewis Avenue.
Typically, we ask that the message change not be any sooner than every 5 seconds. No scrolling, flashing type of change, just a message change, but that it would not be greater than at least 5 seconds, any quicker.
Is Ms. Nussbaum still on the line?
Yes.
Are you aware of what the ordinances are regarding the sign?
Yes,
Okay, and you're able to comply with that?
yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any, no.
For anybody else on the board?
I do like the idea of the sign, I like the idea of the every 5 seconds like we have been doing in the past. And I've noticed that having a dim at dusk is very nice too, because I have a few signs that it really is distracting on your eye if it's not dimmed at night.
I can
So
always
just-
have it shut off at nighttime. That's no problem. I mean, there really would be no reason for it to be on at nighttime because we're not open.
Gotcha. I say even just dimming is fine with me, but off is good too.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't want it on all night in my yard, in the front yard either, so.
Okay, any other questions from the board of Ms. Nussbaum? All right, well, thank you, Ms. Nussbaum.
Okay.
All right, do we have a motion on the board? Another question, Karen?
No, I just wanted to make sure I was catching the motion since Jody's
Okay.
not here yet.
I do have a question. Do we have to let her know that we are one member short right now?
We do have to inform her that we are one member short. And give her
Okay,
an
she's still there?
Yeah.
All right, good. We're one member short tonight. You have the option of allowing us to take a vote, or you can wait until we have a full board.
Well, I'd like to take a vote because I would like to get the sign going as soon as I could.
Okay,
I mean,
okay. That being said, any more discussion? All right, do we have a motion on the floor?
I can make a motion.
All right,
Let's see, it's been a while since I've done this. I'd like to make a motion that we allow a sign waiver in the agricultural zoning district for Raymond and Ella Nussbaum on parcel number 5802-017-02400, otherwise known as 9700 Seco Road, Temperance, Michigan, provided that it meets all the permits, all the required permits, and from Bedford Township. They shall maintain and continue entire perimeter of landscape area no less than 2 feet wide, growing in a healthy condition should a monument sign be installed. And the sign must be located outside the road right away, and not to change more frequently than every 5 seconds, and to either turn off or dim at dusk. I think that's all.
Support.
Support it for, a friendly amendment.
Yes.
I don't think we mentioned to allow for a LED message board.
That's how he opened it up, I
Yes.
believe. He opened it up for the waiver of the LED board. Isn't that what you got, Karen?
That, we'll make sure it says LED message board, yes.
I agree to that amendment if I did not say that.
okay, we have support for the motion. It was Brad Helm, please.
Yes.
Joe Garberick, will you please read the roll call? Did Joe freeze up?
Who supported that?
Brad Helm.
I supported it. Oh, okay.
Joe, you're muted.
Joe, you're muted.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Garvich, yes. Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Anger?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Item C,
B.
pardon, B.
B.
Open the public hearing regarding the request from 6630 Mish Limited for a rezoning request of parcel number 5802-035-058-08 from C2 Shopping Center to C3 General Commercial located on the east side of Lewis Avenue, north of Smith Road, Temperance, Michigan, 48182. Karen, any explanation?
Yes. The applicant is Mike Hodgnicki of Sylvania, Ohio. It is a vacant parcel, C2 Shopping Center being requested to C3. The existing parcel consists of approximately 8.85 acres with 414.20 plus or minus feet of frontage on Lewis Avenue and 660 plus or minus feet of frontage on Smith Road. The subject site is currently C2 Shopping Center Business Zone. The site is served by municipal water and sanitary sewer, and the surrounding zonings are to the north, C2 Shopping Center, to the west, R3 General Commercial and R2B1 Family Residential, to the south, C3 General Commercial, PBO Professional and Business Office, and then to the east, RM1 Multiple Family Residential. The master plan adopted on October 28th, 2015 designates this area as mixed use and further describes the intent to promote mixed uses and flexible redevelopment in areas outside of the village centers, having a mix of residential, office, and lower intensity commercial uses. This request is to rezone the vacant subject parcel with approximately 8.85 plus or minus acres from C2 Shopping Center Business to C3 General Business. The Planning Department requested a review of the rezoning request be conducted by Lucy Fortin of the Manikin Smith Group and the planner for the Bedford Township. Ms. Fortin prepared an overall review of the subject area and concluded the proposed zoning and use is consistent with the goals, policies, and future land use map of the township's master plan. In conclusion, it was suggested the Planning Commission make a recommendation to the Township Board to approve the rezoning request for the following key reasons. I don't know if you want me to go over those 5 reasons, read it, or it is sufficient because it is a little lengthy.
Okay, would anybody else have more detail than that?
Excuse me, if I may. My name's
Hang on. From the board, any other, do you want to go through each one of the 5 items? So that being said, go ahead, Karen.
I say we can include those and we will include those in any motion. Should there be a motion to recommend approval, we will include these 5 key items supporting the recommendation from Lucy Fortin to make a recommendation for approval.
Okay. So do we have a caller? They called in about this?
Public.
Okay.
Public hearing was opened at 7:33.
Marty, do you want to say something?
I was just going to remind you that the chairman should open up the public hearing and then take calls from the public.
Okay, let's open up the public hearing. George, you want to send one in?
I would like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Oh, it's a motion.
Oh,
Second.
We stopped doing the motions, didn't we? Because we have to do the opening. I forgot. Sorry, Pat. That's my
No,
bad.
you're good. You're good. All right, George, first caller.
Hello. My name is Attorney Keaton, and I represent the applicant. And I'd like to just begin by saying that I think the Plan Commission report
Sir,
prepared by
can you state your name and who you do work for or represent?
Absolutely. So my name is Attorney Garrett Keaton. I work with Gressley, Kaplan, and Parker, and I'm here representing the applicant.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to need to be sworn in. I've never done one of these telephonically before. It's new
No,
to me.
we don't need to swear you in.
Okay, no problem. May I begin then?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to begin by saying that I thought that the Plan Commission report that Lucy Fortin prepared, it did a great job both in its way that I identified the property's features, but also in its interpretation of the township's development goals. I've also reviewed the master plan. And what I like about this rezoning specifically is that I think it adds a sense of uniformity in now all four intersections at that Smith and Lewis spot. They would all then uniformly be zone C3. I think that leads to promoting the business vitality within the district, which is one of the economic objectives within the master plan. And then I also think by broadening it, we increase development probability, which adds, a very real prospect of an increased taxable basis. And for those reasons, I think that the rezoning should be approved. That said, if you guys have any questions for me, I'm more than open.
Any questions?
Pat,
Brad?
No.
I have to, ask to be excused from the vote and be involved in this part on the agenda.
Okay, make a note that Brad Helm recused himself from discussion and vote.
I do have something I'd like to say. Typically in the public hearings is we let all the people who would like to speak talk first, and then we close the public hearing and then have the comment. Otherwise, it gets too congested and the meetings would last 12 hours.
Fair point. George, is there anybody else that called in on the subject? Okay.
No, I'm just here to listen and watch. Thanks, George.
George, anyone else? We need to make a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Support?
Joe Garberick, please take the roll.
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Garvich, yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
and Brad Helms abstained.
Okay, Karen, question?
Yes, you will just have to remind the applicant that we are now 2 members short. It still will require a 4 vote,
Okay.
but we are 2 members short now.
Is it Keeklin? Are you still there?
Yes, I am. It's Keaton.
Keaton, I'm sorry. Are you aware that the board is 2 members short? And
Of a
you have the
quorum?
option of allowing us to vote tonight or waiting till we have a full board?
Oh, I was not aware of that.
So what would you like to do?
So now, if I understand correctly, no approval would go through tonight because the board's short, so it needs to be pushed back to the next month. Is that correct?
Marty?
No.
Let me explain. The law provides for rezoning that, and our bylaws requires a majority of the planning commission seats. So there's 7. They may not all be filled, or there might be absence tonight, but a vote of 4 in the affirmative to give a positive recommendation to the township board would be required. Therefore, since there's less than the full 7 present, it may be more difficult to get a full vote of 4 to hand it off with a recommendation for rezoning. So therefore, you have the right to defer this until another meeting when there is a full body present. If you choose to go forward, you still may get and garner a vote of 4. It is merely a recommendation. It is not approval. So the recommendation goes to the township board, which then has the authority to approve or deny it.
When it goes to the township board, does it show that there was support at this meeting for it? Just that there was requisite. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
The recommendation plus public comments plus any other information garnered by the planning department will all be handed off to the township board for their consideration.
Well, that said, I feel that we're comfortable to proceed.
Okay. Is there anybody else in public, or we motioned and approved to move on, right?
Correct.
All right. Any discussion among the board?
I just want to say that I think it does make sense. I agree
I
with
think it's a good idea.
Hang on, Matt, go ahead.
That it, like Lucy Fortner said, it does meet the feeling of the township. It's a 5-lane road right there, so it has the support of the traffic. It's the first major intersection from Ohio, so it lends itself very useful for a C3 zoning.
Mr. Guevara? Did you want to say something?
You guys are going in and out on me here.
Uh-oh.
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you for about 30 seconds, so.
Okay, did you want to say anything, Mr. Guevara? Joe, do you need to say anything? Uh-oh, bad connection. I'll put my 2 cents in. Well, maybe as a connection will improve. I think that the area is ripe for investment, and I think it'd be a good idea to make it flexible or easier for somebody to develop that property. I think it's a good idea. Anybody else have any more comments?
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. I was hearing every other word of yours, but I agree. I think it's we already got 3 sides of it there. I think it fits what it is. So I definitely think it's a good idea.
Any other comments?
I agree also that it fits the other 3 corners, and it's the perfect spot to put that.
Thanks.
Okay. Is that any more comments from anybody else? We have a motion on the floor.
I can make another motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the board of zone, or to the board that we rezone. Let's see. Parcel number 5802-035-05808 from C2 Shopping Center to C3 General Commercial, located on the east side of Lewis Avenue, north of Smith Road, Temperance. With multiple reasons. One, including all the things that Lucy Fortner put on. I think I don't need to read those. And also that it fits the feeling of the township. It matches the other corners. It any special permit, special use would need to be approved through the township anyways. So, and it fits the master plan.
Support for the motion?
Support. Support.
Is that Ron Fritz?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Ron Fritz is supporting the motion. Mr. Guevara, do you want to take the roll?
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Garver, yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. On to item C. The request of Oak Creek Holdings LLC for a reapproval of preliminary planned unit development plan for a 136-unit condominium project on parcel numbers 5802-022-065-13, 5802-022-053-00, and 5802-022-052-00 located at Jackman Road between Dean and Temperance Roads. Karen, any comment, explanation?
Do we need to open to the public first?
Okay, now, we have one site analysis for the next 4 items on the agenda. So it would be, the 3 items on the agenda. You will notice that there will be a number of 5 motions required to approve this or recommend approval to the township board. So we will refer to that, but at the moment, what I'm going to do is go over the site analysis. And again, this will serve for the next 3 items, all public hearings that are required for this approval. This applicant is Dave Schmidt, and it's for North River Villas PUD. This request is from Oak Creek Holdings LLC for final PUD approval for a 136-unit condominium project located off Jackman Road, north of Dean Road, and for rezoning of parcel numbers 5802-022-065-13 and 5802-022-05200 from R3 Single Family Residential to PUD, and a parcel number 5802-022-05300 from R2A to R3 to PUD. The 45.25 acre parcel has a total of approximately 438 feet of frontage on Jackman Road, which provides one means of ingress-egress. However, connection is being made to phase 1 of the subject development through Foxmore Drive within the Brookwood Villas subdivision off Dean Road. Phase 1 consists of 31 units, phase 2 38 units, phase 3 17 units, and phase 4 50 units. A construction route is being provided off Jackman Road and shall be installed and maintained during construction of the site, as all construction, development, access for the site shall be from Jackman Road and not through Brookwood Villas or Village at Oak Creek subdivisions off of Dean Road. The public hearing for preliminary conceptual approval for the request was held. We did include the minutes where the Planning Commission recommended approval on 9/26/18, and the preliminary concept PUD plan was approved by the Township Board on 10/16/18. Those minutes are included as well. Due to the time frame and to avoid a lapse in the 1-year approval, a reapproval for preliminary concept PUD plan was granted by the Township Board on 10/1/2019. Per section 400-173-1703A, the Township Board, upon written application by the applicant, may extend the preliminary PUD plan approval for a successive 12-month periods, except that no more than 2 such 12-month extensions may be granted. Due to the lapse in time frame and COVID-19 restrictions, a reapproval of the preliminary concept PUD is required by ordinance. Oak Creek Holdings is seeking an additional reapproval of the preliminary concept PUD plan. It's required and permitted by ordinance, which is included. So we are not asking for anything that is not permitted by ordinance. Final PUD for the North Rivers Villas and final site plan approval for phase 1 of the project. It should be noted the planning department is working with the developer, Consumers Energy, and the clerk's department on the street lighting plan. Sidewalks are being proposed around the exterior units. For section 400-1907.12, stormwater detention ponds requires 1 deciduous shade or evergreen tree and 10 shrubs shall be planted for every 100 lineal feet of pond perimeter as measured along the top of the bank elevation. However, the submitted proposed landscaping plan does not meet the requirements by ordinance. For section 400-1907, modifications to landscape requirements states in consideration of the overall design and impact of a specific landscape plan and in consideration of the amount of existing plant material to be retained on the site, the Planning Commission may modify specific requirements outlined herein, provided that any such adjustment is in keeping with the intent of this section and this zoning ordinance in general. It also states in determining whether a modification is appropriate, the Planning Commission may base its decision on any one or more of the listed circumstances which exist in connection with the site, as listed in A, B, and C in the ordinance that was provided. The developer has advised the Planning Department that the color scheme rendering will be earth tones, and a letter of approval was received from the Monroe County Road Commission on 12/28/20 with comments and conditions, from the Monroe County Drain Commission on 12/28/20 with comments and conditions, Monroe Mannequin Smith Group on 1/5/21 with comments and conditions, and the Bedford Township Fire Department on 3/11/20 with comments and conditions. Following conditions shall be included in motions for approval. Final PUD approval, conditioned upon addressing all issues and concerns stated in the 1/5/21 Mannequin Smith Group review letter. The construction drive shall be utilized for all construction site development for this site, and no access for construction development purposes shall be made through Brookwood Villas and Village at Oak Creek subdivisions off of Dean Road. The special assessment district for street lighting with phase 1 shall be set up through the clerk's department, and the PUD agreement and master deed shall be submitted to the township attorney and Manick and Smith Group for review and approval. Final site plan approval for phase 1 of North River Villas shall be conditioned upon addressing all issues and concerns prior to any development as stated in the Monroe County Drain Commission, Manick and Smith Group, Monroe County Road Commission, and the Bedford Township Fire Department review letters. Now, if I go back to I read over everything that we're going to consider for that whole project. We have listed that one item that needs to be the first to be addressed would be request for reapproval of preliminary concept for North River Villas. It was previously submitted as Brookwood Villas North. I know there was one comment on the curb cut onto Jackman Road. That was required by ordinance. They had to have 2 entrances for this particular site because the number of homes does exceed 100. So they will have the road commission approved curb cut off of Jackman Road, and then the second curb cut or access would be through Brookwood and Village at Oak Creek. The second item we would have to take care of would be request to rezone parcel number 5802-05300 from R2A single family residential to R3 single family residential. This parcel was included in the conceptual approval. However, it was not rezoned to R3 when the remainder of the subject site was rezoned from R2A to R3. So we will want to establish that underlying zoning district before we rezone to PUD. Request to rezone parcel numbers, and there are all 3 parcel numbers from R3 single family residential to PUD planned unit development. The request for final PUD approval for North River Villas, and there were conditions that they have to adhere to. We will want to make sure that prior to this going to the township board, that the developer makes an application with the assessing department to combine all 3 parcels to create 1 parcel for the PUD. We don't want 3 separate parcels with the PUD because there are some restrictions developing over parcel lines. So the applicant will have to fill out a land combination agreement or land combination. And then the next request would be for final site plan for phase 1 of North River Villas. So if we follow that guideline as we're moving through this process, I believe we're doing it in order as required, and I will ask for confirmation from Attorney Camprith if we're going in the right direction.
Mr. Chairman, can you please ask our make sure they're easy? Thank you.
Sharon, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Pat, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Ron.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
All right, Ron, go ahead.
I wanted to know if we had to have the public meeting separate on each one of these 5, or will we go through all 5 of them with one public meeting?
Dennis, you're muted. Somebody's muting everybody.
Karen's muted too.
They automatically come on and told you that if you don't hit *6, you get muted. So.
Oh, yes, it does look like everyone's muted.
We gotta hit *6.
We got it. We do have public hearings scheduled for each one of these. They will,
okay.
Those that require a public hearing, we will open the public hearing, but I think for discussion purposes, we can do all of the discussion at one time and then move through the procedure to approve make a recommendation actually to the township board, but they all do require their own public hearing. And they can be discussed if you have one particular item that you want to discuss on each category or each item, then you can. But for discussion purposes, I think it's easier just to handle it all together because it is one development. Would you concur, Attorney Camprath?
Yes, I would.
C, D, and E, but it's all for the same project development.
C is not. Yes, C is not a public hearing, though.
That is correct.
Yes.
So are we taking 5 votes?
We are taking 5 votes. But the first one is not a public hearing, so we can make that motion now before we open the public hearing for a D and E, which we will, those are 2 public hearings, but those each take 2 votes.
All right, Matt? You're muted, Matt.
I did have a question about the landscaping. I was contacted about this, and I know that they submitted a revised landscaping plan for the Brookwood where it abuts. And would that be under the first item or the other 2 that we would discuss something like that?
If the attorney agrees, I would like to see item C be addressed right now because it's just a reapproval of what has already been approved, but we feel that we need to keep it in sequential order.
Yes, I believe it's merely to address the conceptual plan. The details of landscaping should be incorporated into the PUD plan.
Okay.
Later.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on item C? We have a motion on the floor for item C.
I'll make a motion to reapprove the preliminary, the preliminary conceptual planned unit development plan for a 136 acre or 136 unit condominium project on parcel number 5802-022-065-13, 5802-022-053-00, and 5802-022-052-00, located on Jackman Road between Dean and Temperance.
Support, Marty, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marty.
I would just remind everybody that all of these are in a recommendation to the township board, except for the last one, which is a site plan, and that is for an approval by the planning commission. That does not go to the township board.
Okay.
So my motion should have been a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Support to Dennis Jenkins' motion.
Support.
Matt supports. Matt Anger supports. Joe Garver, can you read the roll?
Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Garvix, yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Anger. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. On to item D. Karen, do you just, I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead. Okay, do we open it up right now or do we vote?
We should open the public hearing because we don't have an open public hearing for them to speak right now.
Okay, let's open the public hearing. Send in the first caller. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, state your name and your address and go ahead and tell us what you want to tell us.
Okay, my name is Melody Carmichael. I am at 479 East Erie Road in Temperance.
Okay. You can go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to voice my opposition to the zoning being changed from single family to multifamily units at the location of Jackman and Dean. There are reasons that I oppose this, mostly because I don't like when communities grow and develop and become large, that process brings with it further restrictions that we can place on landowners. So first of all, we're going to have a financial burden eventually that comes along with more and more development in a couple of different ways. In one way, we already are seeing the effects that have come with the chain stores that we're having and more housing development. Eventually, we're going to be to the point that our roads aren't going to be able to accommodate all of the traffic that we have because it's too densely populated for our roads to be able to take that amount of traffic. So then what will happen is somebody's going to want to widen the roads. And of course, that's going to be a tax burden for some of the people in this community that won't be able to afford something like that. We often hear about the demand that some people are making already for sidewalks in our community. Well, this is a rural community for the most part, and you don't have sidewalks in rural communities. But with that development being so close to the schools, I'm concerned that, again, taxpayers are going to be made accountable to have to provide sidewalks for the families so that their kids can walk to school. And again, that's going to be a tax burden on people who might not be able to handle that kind of a burden. Are we also going to then take away well water for residents who live further out in the community? Because as we encroach, then the next demand is going to be that people are forced to take municipal water as opposed to the well water that they have. All right. Then we also have certain liberties when we live in a small community that you don't get to have when you're living in a densely populated area. A lot of the things that people leave the city so that they can have those different privileges that you don't get to have in the city, but then they want to change the country into the city. So I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But one example is the burning that we have when we live out in the country. We are allowed to burn leaves. We can have bonfires. You can have a burning barrel. When you have an increase in populations in a densely populated area, maybe you have kids with asthma in that area. So now you put restrictions on landowners so that they can't burn anymore. When we live out in the country, we are allowed to shoot on our property. When you have a densely populated area, now you're going to have complaints that people are shooting. There's noise. Somebody shot off tannerite and it made a big boom. What kind of rights are we going to lose, again, as far as our ability to use our land as we see fit because somebody across the street doesn't like what we're doing? You might be able to take your ATV out to go to your neighbor's house right now. Well, as, again, you get more populated, you lose that liberty. What about livestock? Are they going to say, the people who are moving into rural areas, are they going to say, well, we don't like the smell of your horses and your cows and et cetera. So my concern with rezoning into a multifamily unit is that we're going to lose some of the rights that property owners have as they live out in the country, that we're losing our rights while the people in that little community, in the housing development, are making money, and we can't live our lives the way we're accustomed to.
Okay.
So that's all.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Carmichael.
Anything
George,
else?
do we have anyone else? George, is there anybody else? Should we, go ahead, Karen.
George, can we go ahead and admit the applicant with the last four digits of 5359? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that he's on and that he can speak because he is the developer of the project in case he wants to comment on anything.
Okay. Okay, state your name and your address and go ahead and say what you need to say. Are you there?
Is this is Dave Schmidt, is this for me?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so yeah, I'm the developer of the project. I'm David Schmidt with Oak Creek Holdings. And yeah, basically, this is kind of just a continuation of the Brookwood subdivision that we did. I think on our original preliminary approval, we were up around 145 lots, maybe. We're down to 136, so we've reduced the density a little bit. You know, we've had some discussions, I think, that we talked about the preliminary approval, where I met with the property owner to the north of the entryway, and we're putting some additional pine trees in and, you know, gave some additional backyard, I think, in that area so that he was satisfied. We changed the land. Also at the preliminary meeting, I think we also agreed to put some pine trees for screening between the existing Brookwood subdivision and the new one, which we've revised the landscaping plan to reflect. Really, I guess the only other thing is the landscaping requirement around the pond. As you may or may not know, we took over the Crystal Water subdivision and finished that out. And we kind of learned from that one that, I mean, people are paying a premium to be on the pond because they want to see the pond. So it just doesn't make any sense to, you know, put a bunch of trees in there that would block the view of the pond because people want a view of the pond. So that's why we asked, I guess, for that request. That's really about it. I mean, I think Brookwood's been a really successful project. There's obviously demand up there for this type of housing. You know, in response to the previous person that was speaking, I mean, I understand what she's saying, but like most of our customers are Bedford residents that are coming out of, you know, 2, 3, 5, 10 acre parcels up there, and they're just getting older and can't take care of them. So I think there is a need for this type of housing in the development. And, you know, we'd ask that you approve the project.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Schmidt? All right, Dave, can you stay on?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks. All right, go ahead. State your name and your address. Okay, you can go ahead and state your name, address, and go ahead and speak. Hello? Hello?
You're on. You're on. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Ken Creighton, 8310.
What's your name again, sir?
This is Ken Creighton, 8310 Twin Creek Circle.
Okay.
And I've got a concern about, this is a high water table area, and I was wondering if a hydro study has been conducted.
Okay.
Does anybody know?
Is that all you have?
No. I was wondering if there's been any coordination with the County Drain Commission concerning drainage control improvements and flood controls.
Okay.
And then the third one would be, is the new development going to have an independent storm drain and catch basin, or is it going to tie into the existing one into Brookwood? I'm concerned about flooding.
Okay, is that all you have, sir?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Creighton. Anybody else, George? Okay, Mr. Schmidt, do you want to address those questions?
Would we like to close
Yeah.
the public hearing?
Well, I'm not,
Would you like to take a motion to close the public hearing here?
we have
Is there a
enough
motion to
that's
close
not
the public?
recognizable. I see a number on the screen that's not recognizable as an applicant, and I'm wondering if that is someone waiting to make a public comment. Okay, okay.
Okay, go ahead and state your name and address. Make your comments. Hello?
Hi,
Hi there.
this is Gene Stock, 8322 Twin Creek Circle. And I reside in the Brookwood Village subdivision. My property is adjacent to the proposed PUD. And I'm speaking on behalf of the 45 lot owners in Brookwood Villas and Oak Creek subdivisions who signed the petition that you guys received concerning the landscaping and some other issues. In discussing the landscape barrier with lot owners, and especially those who back up to the proposed PUD, they've expressed the following concerns and suggestions. They would like to see a more substantial landscape barrier other than the 4-foot spruce trees spaced 18 feet apart. That's proposed between Brookwood and the PUD. It'll take a long time for these to fill in. We've suggested the possibility of using white fiberglass fencing along with spruce trees in between the sections. This is similar to the landscape barrier used over on Summerlin at Smith and Secor. And I've contacted the lot owners that live adjacent to where the PUD will be in, and they like that proposal. I think when I sent the petition in, I also sent a photo of that. We'd also like to see the landscape barrier extended behind the homes that will be affected in the Oak Creek subdivision. Right now, it only covers the homes in Brookwood. It's not shown on the proposed plan. We'd like to see the landscape barrier installed as part of one of the first things completed in the construction, if possible. If fence and trees are used, the landscape barrier will provide an instant barrier for both lot owners in our subdivisions and the new lot owners on North River Villas. This type of landscape barrier also would provide protection from all the dust that'll be produced during the construction of the new PUD. Some of the owners also have concerns regarding proper drainage between the new condo subdivision and our subdivisions. I think somebody was just on about that. And also, and I think you guys have noticed this before, that we definitely don't want our subdivision roads in Brookwood and Oak Creek used as a construction entrance. And I think what was originally proposed anyway was off of Jackman Road. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stock.
Thank you.
George, is there anybody else? Should we close public hearing, or should we address these issues that maybe Mr. Schmidt could address real quick for us?
I think you can close the public hearing. You're going to have another public hearing, and maybe everybody's exhausted their comments, but you'll still have to go through the numbers.
So do we need to take a vote to do this?
Yeah, somebody's motion to close the public hearing.
Who made the motion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Gavark, please take the roll.
You guys are going in and out on me. Who supported that and who?
Matt made the motion and Dennis supported.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Garvich, yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Anger.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Public comments section is closed. So, Mr. Schmidt, do you want to reply to the comments made? The hydro study, the County Drain Commission, independent storm drain and barrier to border both subdivisions south, on the south side?
Yes. So, yeah, to answer the first person's question, yes, the Drain Commission has been heavily involved in the project as far as reviewing it. I mean, as they usually are. We also, had discussions with the DEQ on everything. So they are involved. The drainage systems are not tied together. They're totally separate. So there is no drainage from North River Villas that's coming down into the existing Brookwood or Oak Creek subdivisions. I don't think we've done a hydrological study, but I mean, we've obviously developed, 60, 70 lots up there, and we haven't had any issues at all with that. So I don't think it's an issue, and I know it's not required, but I mean, if it was an issue, we would have looked into it, and it's really not. I'm sure the Drain Commission would have required it if it was. As far as the landscaping goes, yeah, I mean, we can try and get the trees a little bit higher, maybe do some mounding if all the residents are in agreement on it. I can't really do mounding without everyone agreeing to it, but I don't have a problem extending the landscaping barrier to the Oak Creek part of the subdivision, if that's what the residents want there. So I'm agreeable to that. I guess that's about it, really.
How about anything more than just spruce trees?
Well, I'd rather not do white vinyl fencing. I think it looks really ugly, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't say ugly, but it's very intrusive, kind of, just so to speak. Whereas natural landscaping, in my mind, is a lot more pleasant to look at. The other problem with fencing is it remains at 6 feet forever, whereas once the trees get larger, they obviously get 8, 10, 12 feet tall, and I think gives you a lot better screening. The 18 feet, actually most of the landscaping companies were recommending 20 feet apart because when the trees get big, they grow together. So we kind of cut it down to 18 feet apart, but you do have to plant them a little ways apart so that when they get larger, they're not growing right against each other. But that's what was recommended by a couple different landscaping companies, was 20 feet apart.
How far from the back property line would you plant them?
As close to it as possible. On the Brookwood part, if we were able to do some kind of a mound that was maybe 2-3 foot high, I mean, I'd love to do a mound there and actually, get them up on a mound. I think it looks nicer and it gives you a little more screening to start with. But, as long as all the residents whose properties butt up to that, you can't really do a mound without getting some of the dirt on their property. So they'd all have to be kind of agreeable to doing that. But if they're all agreeable to that, I'd love to do a little mound to put the pine trees on top of.
Okay, Mr. Gavarik?
Yeah, Mr. Smith, when you guys were gonna plant these trees at 4 foot tall, were you gonna plant them in a row, or were you gonna triangle them, to make it better blockies for them as they grow? Because a pine tree grows a foot a year with their new candles, and I know it'll take a long time. Would it be possible to triangulate them, just to give them a little bit more, and maybe go with a 6 foot Colorado blue or something? Just want to know what your thought was, how you're going to lay them out, and if you thought about triangulating them.
We have there again. I'd like to put them on a mound, and you can't really do the triangulation with the mound. If we don't do a mound, then yes, we could probably stagger them or do the triangulation. And just we normally do 5 to 6 foot trees, but there seems to be a shortage of them. So a lot of them, even though we're ordering 5 footers, 5 to 6s, some of them are coming in 4 feet. So I didn't want to mislead anyone. We can only get what we can get, and I've had some projects where we've done 5 to 6 foot trees, and some of them came in 4 feet. And people were complaining, so I think most of them will actually end up being 5 to 6 foot tall, is what we're shooting for.
Can you order 8 footers and get 6 footers?
What's that? I'm sorry,
I think it's important for the neighbors that we try to do something there for them. That I know if you go in a straight line, a 4 foot tree. I own a tree spade. I planted all of them over at Summerlin. I know how long it takes. That's why the vinyl fence is there. But I'd like to help them out a little bit so they feel more comfortable it's not 18 years from now where it's looks good for them. That's just my concern.
Karen, is there a requirement to put up a barrier?
No barrier or buffer is required between residential and residential, but the planning commission can make conditions and the applicant can agree to install a buffer, but there is no requirement by ordinance between different residential zoning districts.
And I guess I would like to, make both sides happy, so it's not cost prohibitive for Mr. Schmidt, but make the neighbors, so, if we can come to some type of agreement that works for him, I have no problem. I know the neighbors do have some concerns. If we can work that out, that would be great, I think.
Yeah,
Matt?
well, so, at the preliminary meeting, it was brought up that they wanted that, and so I kind of gave in and agreed to do it. And I thought that was kind of meeting them halfway, so to speak. I thought, we're probably looking at about a $50,000 cost to put all these pine trees in if you include Oak Creek too. So it's not an insignificant amount. I don't know. It does take a few years for them to grow. I grant you that. There's really not any requirement, obviously, between residential areas, but I honestly think the screening that we're going to be doing would be adequate. It may take a few years for them to grow, but I think, in 2-3 years, you're going to have a pretty substantial barrier there and some pretty good screening, to be honest with you.
Matt?
I just wanted to say, I definitely like the idea of the trees. I've always been a natural barrier person. I don't know if it's possible to put in in the motion to say, if possible, do mounding, and if they agree to it. If not, then try the more triangulation, just so there is that a little bit more. But I think it's a very nice that the developer is willing to put it on both sides, because good neighbors are by good fences, I think.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Schmidt? Marty?
Yeah, I would just try and remind the planning commission that the item up for their discussion and a motion is merely the rezoning of the one particular parcel from R2A to R3. We really don't have anything to say about screening or anything on that rezoning question. Of course, it's all relevant when we get down into the PUD approval. So what's before you at this instance is the rezoning of that singular parcel. And then the next item we're going to get into next, then rezoning the 3 parcels, if they're combined, to PUD. After that, then the PUD plan approval, where all this screening is relevant, and make sure you address that in motion in any conditions. And then finally, a site plan approval for phase 1.
Okay, that being said, do I have a motion on the floor regarding item D? Go ahead, Jody.
I just wanted to remind you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Schmidt, we are short one board member. You have the option of allowing a vote tonight or waiting till we have a full board. Say ye.
We'll go ahead with the vote tonight.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on the floor?
I can make a motion. I make a motion that we request to rezone parcel number 5802-022-05300 from R2A single family residential to R3 single family residential. It already is less dense than they originally planned. They went from 140 something down to 136, and it does consistent with the other areas, the Brookwood. And I think that the design is a very nice design for our community.
Support the motion. Ron Fritz?
Support. Yep.
Okay, Mr. Gaverick, You want to call the roll?
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Garvich, yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item. Item E, I believe, right? Karen, do you want to explain?
Well, I pretty much explained everything with the, because this is a public hearing on this, to consider the, this here is to consider the approval for final PUD and rezoning from R3 to single-family residential. So that's what we will take place now, and then after that, it will be for site plan approval. On this particular item on the agenda, but that site plan approval will not be a recommendation to the township board. It will be for approval. So that's why we're going to do that in a separate motion. But we pretty much discussed everything for the entire project, unless anyone else has further comments to make or anything they want to add.
With that, let's open the public hearing. George, any calls? Okay. We have a call. The caller there? You have to connect us, George. We have.
Hi.
So, do we have somebody calling in? Hello?
Hi, this is Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Is this the time we would address the concerns with the screening?
With the screening? Oh, are you talking about the
final plan that Karen talked about?
Yes, this would be the time to discuss
Okay,
this.
thank you. Thank you. Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. I wanted to speak to the actual overall plan. It's hard doing this virtual stuff. I don't have these pictures in front of me. My understanding is phase 3 is the furthest in and will be done last. So the question I have is the wear and tear on this whole entrance back and forth with these heavy duty trucks. And again, I cannot believe that there would be any entrance at all allowed on Jackman Road. It would be nice if we could cut this back to the 100 that wouldn't require this Jackman Road. And I can't see if any of these areas are going to be able to come in and out off of Dean Road at any given time. I understand the homeowners there kind of want their own little clique and close it off like a cul-de-sac. And because I've never driven back through there, to me it would make sense that those homes there would connect with sidewalks and whatever else. If these are basically seniors, then they would want to mingle and walk back and forth. It would give them their own little area to walk. The sidewalks, the mounding, I would have a concern with the mowing. And I agree with Mr. Anger about the fences. I find Summerlin, when I drive down Secor Road, an eyesore. I'm sorry, but I do. The other thing is that that's a deer track. Not rural anymore, despite what some people think. But the other thing would be is to maintain as much of that flavor. We screwed up a long time ago. But instead of that fence, which would then require somebody having to take care of it and maintain it, would be to have the developer put in what's called a windrow and use different types of trees, hopefully Michigan natives, Mix in some arborvitaes. You would put in one row that would be every 20 feet, and then the next row up would go in each one of those 20 feet space. You would plant a tree of another variety and go all the way down. If you plant all the same thing, if a disease hits, such as the pine trees, the issues that we have, the borers, and all the other problems that we're having because of climate change, is going to impact your trees. And when it impacts, it'll take out a whole row. So it would be nice to mix and match slow with fast growers. Like I said, the arborvitaes. You have all kinds of trees that could be planted, especially if you went with the natives. That would help with that. It would give natural birds places to hide. You would be able to have a place for the deer to continue to walk through. And hopefully you've got your sidewalks coming from those up to the front. I'm not big into all this, but they want the seniors to get out of their houses. The seniors want to stay here because that's what they're comfortable with. I'm assuming he's going to have a homeowners or somebody doing the sidewalks and mowing all the grasses. So we need to have it so that it is something that can be taken care of easily enough. Mounds you can't do that with. And a fence, again, is an obstruction from one subdivision to the next. And that, is my understanding, has never been something that's been allowed. There's supposed to be outlots. So that's my concern, and I still feel that this is going to be a huge, huge negative impact on Jackman Road between library traffic, church traffic, school buses, and everything else. And it's, I just don't think it's conducive to the community to have that coming out onto Jackman Road, not when we already have two outlots on Dean. That's where this subdivision should connect and come in and go out of. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Keene. Who's next, George?
Hi, this is James Stock, 8322 Twin Creeks Circle. I listened to the part of the meeting where Dave spoke, and what I'd like to propose is to see if Dave would be willing to meet with a representative of the people who actually live along, and it'll abut the new PUD, and if we could work something out that would be amenable to both people. And the other thing I want to mention is a lot of the people in here are 70 and over, and some of them made the comment, Gene, I want to make sure that, you know, if a 4 feet tall tree, I want to be able to enjoy it. I might die before it gets big enough to screen. But that's another issue. But if David would be willing to do that, that would be great. We'd like to work with him too and make something that we be complimentary for his project and ours. So, thank you very much.
Thanks again, Mr. Stock. Who else do we have, George? Nobody holding. All right, let's close public comment. Do we need to take a vote?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
All right. Mr.
Who seconded
Rivera?
that?
Second, Fritz.
Ron Fritz. Yeah.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
You're on mute, Mr. Jenkins.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Garvick, yes, Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Are we at the public comment portion now? General public comment?
I think we're at the discuss and make a recommendation to the board on.
Right, my bad. Okay, any discussion
this
on
is Dave,
the,
This is Dave Schmidt. Can I make a
yeah,
comment?
go ahead, Dave.
So on what Gene said, I mean, I would welcome the opportunity to meet with him or another representative. And, you know, Gene's a reasonable guy and all the residents in there are too. So, yeah, I'd be more than willing to meet with them and work something out that was acceptable to both of us.
Great. Matt?
I just wanted to say that means a lot coming from fellow landowners, just that you're willing to do that and sit down with someone to try to work out some issues that may not necessarily be required, but are definitely good for the town as a whole. So we appreciate that.
Marty?
Okay, yeah, not a problem.
I would just note that the next thing that the planning commission should consider is rezoning of the 3 parcels that make up the project to PUD, or planned unit development. And then after that, it would be another motion to recommend approval of the final PUD plan. That final PUD plan will incorporate the landscape plan. So if Mr. Schmidt is going to meet with Mr. Stock, I'd recommend they get together quickly in a week or two and come up with a consensus on that. So any changes different than what's approved tonight can be incorporated in the landscaping plan before it gets presented to the township board for final approval.
And on that note, who should Dave or the representative for those subdivisions contact Karen to put it on the agenda?
It will not come back to the planning commission. It would just go to the township board.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah, I think, this isn't Mr. Smith's first rodeo. He gets it. He's built lots of these. They've all turned out well. And I think if he meets with Gene Stock and that, they can work something out. And I like Marty's comment on let's do it sooner than later so we can all agree. And, hopefully they can work it out on size of tree and spacing and, enough said. So I think it's not somebody coming in front of us. It's his very first subdivision. So.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so we have to make a motion to convert 3 parcels to PUD. Does somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Karen's going to have to help me on this. I'd like to make a motion, and this is an approval, not a recommendation, right?
Right.
It is a recommendation.
This is
Recommendation.
rezone the 3 parcels, Dennis, first, so it's a recommendation.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the township board rezoning from R3 single family residential to PUD planned unit development plan for a 136 unit condominium project and for final site plan approval for phase 1 on parcel number 58-022-065-013 and 5802-022-053-00 and 5802-022-052-000 located on Jackman Road between Dean and Temperance. Did we already rezone that to R3?
We did.
The strip, okay. So we're good.
Any support for the motion?
I support it.
Ron Fritz supports. Marty, question?
Just to clarify, the motion should merely be a recommendation for rezoning of those 3 parcels that make up the project to PUD zoning. The next motion will be to address the final PUD plan. So I was unsure of the distinction in that motion, but it is a recommendation to the township board for rezoning of the 3 parcels that are all now or will be R3 uniformly to PUD zoning.
Before moving forward, Ms. Kincaid stated we had to do conditions made for the application to do a land combination.
That is correct, but we won't handle that during the rezoning portion of it because we can't condition rezonings. We will handle that during the PUD approval, which is the next item on the agenda. Is that correct, Marty?
Yes.
Okay. So Ron Fritz seconded the motion. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Guevara, call the roll.
Who was the first one on that, Mr. Chairman? Fritz seconded it, and then it was Dennis who read it. Dennis Jenkins
Dennis-
and then Ron.
Dennis
Yeah.
made the motion, Ron Fitz seconded.
Thank you. Mr. Anger?
Yes.
Uh-oh. Locked up. You locked up again, Joe.
Mr. Anger?
Yes.
Should I
Can
call
you
the
guys
roll?
hear me?
You break up. You're breaking up.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are breaking up with me also. Can you hear me now or not? Can you guys hear me or not?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Okay. Uh, Mr. Anger?
Yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Garvich, yes. Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Are we making a motion on this last one, Marty, or did you say we should wait till they meet?
I think that they want to move forward, and we should hand all these recommendations off together to the township board for their decision. So at this item, which I have as your fourth motion, looking at Jody's memorandum, which has been very helpful. It is their request for final PUD approval of their project. And this is the plans that you're looking at and you've been looking at, and it should include all of the conditions by the reviewing agencies. It should include whatever discretionary decision the planning commission makes regarding landscaping. And also a mention should be made that the applicant should apply for and process a tentative approval of the land combination of those three parcels. We don't want three separate parcels in one project. So that would be another administrative thing that the applicant should take care of before it gets to the township board meeting stage.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Karen, go ahead.
Marty, if I may, should we add the PUD agreement, the master deed shall be submitted to the township attorney and Manick and Smith for review and approval?
Yes, the condominium related items, that would be a master deed, condominium bylaws, subdivision or exhibit B, which is the site plan for the condominiums. Those go to Manick and Smith, the engineers, along with us needing a PUD final plans approved by the township board and a PUD agreement, which is created by the developer with those plans as an exhibit, which will be recorded at the Register of Deeds office in Monroe.
And I think we have most of what Marty described in the site analysis on the last page for the final PUD agreement, or excuse me, final PUD approval. Those items with the addition of the land combination and the landscaping. I think we've outlined the items that have to be considered and conditioned for the final PUD approval.
That borders the Oak Creek subdivision, correct? We have to add that, right?
Correct. The landscaping and the land combination was not included in this analysis, but was discussed this evening. So it will have to be added to the language that we have outlined in the analysis, final PUD approval.
So do we need to amend the motion?
Does everyone see where I'm talking about in the site analysis on the last page?
Yes.
What do you mean by land combination? That's one thing I was confused by.
Currently, we have 3 separate parcels. We want the developer to come in and create one parcel for this development. And they can do that. That we'll want to have happen before it goes to the township board, at least get the application in. to show good faith that it's going to take place prior to any sort of development.
Jody?
And I also just wanted to include that the planning commission also needs to make a determination on the landscaping regarding the detention pond as well.
Can you elaborate on that? What about the landscaping around the retention pond?
When Karen reviewed the analysis, the detention pond actually requires 10 shrubs and 1 plant for every 100 linear feet around the perimeter of the pond. And the plan that was submitted does not meet those requirements. And if you look at the portion of the ordinance, it gives A, B, C, or D that allows for the planning commission to modify those requirements. It is actually on the portion of the ordinance. I have it highlighted, and if you'd like, I could read those options, or if you want to look at the packets of the ordinance, it's 5 pages in from the back.
Is Mr. Schmidt aware of that?
Yes.
So do we have to amend this motion to make sure he complies with that ordinance?
The planning commission has to make a determination if you want to modify from the requirements and approve what he has submitted. I believe there's just a few trees, and Mr. Schmidt spoke on that, stating regarding the fact of those homes that are on those stormwater detention ponds are more aesthetically appealing to property owners should there be less landscaping.
Any comments among the board?
What are they proposing right now? I'm trying to find that. Are they proposing anything?
Yeah.
Yes. If you even look at that individual one, if you don't, the plan that it shows there's like 3 on the pond that is in phase 2, and then on the pond that's abutting in phase 1, there's just a couple, one on the west side and one on the south side, and then in phase on the third detention pond, there's 2 on the south side, and then if you look in phase 4, there is 6 trees proposed on the pond.
Okay, so it's not barren, it's just a reduced amount.
Correct.
Thank you.
But there aren't residents there yet.
Jody, could I
about it,
address
right?
that a minute too?
Absolutely, Dave. Mr. Schmidt wants to speak on it.
Oh,
Pat.
please, Mr. Schmidt, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. So, I did want to point out, yeah, we cut that back, but there's a little ditch or creek that runs through the center of the subdivision that goes along the banks of all 3 of the ponds, really, to varying degrees. That ditch is fairly heavily wooded, so there is a lot of natural landscaping already there on some of the banks of the pond, in addition to what we're doing.
Are these ponds similar to the ones that's at the beginning of the Brookwood, where there's like the water with the fountain?
Yes, that would be very similar. Yep.
Well, again, it seems to me that there's nobody there to complain about the way it's landscaped or how he has it planned, and people can choose to buy their home there or not if they like or dislike it, right?
Correct.
If you're ready for a motion, I would be willing to try to do one here.
Okay, any other comments before we do this? Nobody? All right, Matt, go ahead.
All right, I'd like to make a recommendation to the board for a final PUD approval condition upon addressing all issues and concerns stated in the 1521 Mannequin Smith Group review letter. The construction drive shall be utilized for all construction site development for the site, and no access for construction development purposes shall be made through Brookwood Villas and Village at Oak Creek subdivisions off of Dean Road. The special assessment district for the street lighting within phase 1 shall be set up through the clerk's department, and the PUD agreement and master deed shall be submitted to the township attorney and Mannequin Smith Group for review and approval. that they would also have at least a permit for the land combination be submitted for good faith for the board before the board meeting, and also that we allow the reduced landscaping as submitted for the pond, and that the landscaping between the subdivision of Oak Creek, Brookwood, and the new site be included with the pine trees, and that he discusses them with Gene Stock to try to make a good faith attempt there. And this is for do I need to say all the parcels? Parcel 858022022 06513, 5802-022-05300, and 5802-022-05200. Did I get everything there, Marty?
I think you have.
Okay, good.
It is a recommendation.
We have support.
Support.
I support.
Dennis Jenkins got the first support in. Mr. Garverick, call the roll.
Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Garvix, yes. Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And that leads us, is that it? We done with this? 9E's done.
One more.
One more,
Okay,
final site plan approval for phase 1.
okay. Jody?
I just had one clarification. Is there going to be a time frame for them to resubmit the landscaping plan before it goes to the township board? Or because that will have to be included with the exhibit for the master deed and the PUD agreement? So I just didn't know if you're going to require that before the township board approves the PUD plan. Marty?
The parties should get together immediately and come up with a consensus on that landscaping, and hopefully have it drawn up and presentable by the deadline for the next township board agenda, which might be a Wednesday or Thursday before the board meeting. So I think that needs to be addressed by the township board with the rest of their review and approvals. And then it can be incorporated in the PUD plan, which would be attached to the PUD agreement, if that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, what is the next item on the agenda?
Request for final site plan approval for phase 1. And then to include the conditions.
I have the original agenda and it doesn't have that on it, right?
It's mixed in there, but Jody did break that down.
Okay, I see it, okay.
For final site plan approval for phase 1.
Phase 1, yep.
And then in the same site analysis, the second bullet point, it talks about final site plan approval for phase 1, and then it gives those some items that they have to make sure they address.
Any discussion? Marty?
I see a problem if the site plan is approved. We want to make it conditioned upon, of course, the township board approving the whole project via the PUD plan. So I think it needs to be conditioned upon the township board approving the PUD plan and the project going forward. Also, I believe, maybe somebody can correct me, is the landscaping plan part of the site plan for phase 1? And so then we have that open question about what landscaping is going to be between the two developments, and is it going to be incorporated on the site plan?
Jody, you're nodding your head.
Yes, that landscaping that abuts the southern side of the plan will be included in the site plan approval process for Brookwood.
And if Mr. Schmidt is going to extend it to Village at Oak Creek, that is also in phase 3. So we will address that portion of it possibly at a later time on a different site plan, because each phase has to come back to site plan approval.
Okay, any other discussion? Any motion about approving the final site plan for phase 1? Dependent upon the board's accepting of the final PUD? Any motion? Anybody?
Matt, you were doing so.
I just want to make sure, do I need to add the landscaping on this one as well from what Jody provided for us?
Yes, that will have to be included and amended, so we have copies of that, what they determine as going to be their landscaping. We will need a new set of plans in the planning department.
Hey, Jody,
Yes?
is there any way of approving it as is with the condition that I meet with Gene Stock and make a good faith effort to, you know, try and come to terms with what we're going to do there?
Mr. Camprath?
Well, yes, that's possible. I don't know how you define a good faith effort, and what if the parties don't agree? Where does that leave us? So I don't know how to solve that dilemma.
I mean, right now we're looking at basically approval of 18-foot separation with some 4-foot minimum height trees. Correct?
Yes, I would say as it's drawn on their submittal that Jody included, it looks like it stops at the access road. Phase 1 may go further and may go east of the access road. So if it's to be the full width of phase 1, that drawing may have to be corrected also.
Yes, because in the plan, phase 1 actually, lots 1 through 4 are actually in front of Village at Oak Creek. And those are where they were inquiring an additional tree plantings.
Yeah. So that would be a condition that I've already agreed to.
Do they need the an updated rendering of that? Is that the issue?
Well, you can include it in your approval and have them resubmit a revised drawing, including that. So if the planning commission is comfortable in trusting the good faith of both parties, come up with a different acceptable screening plan, I guess they could resubmit it as revised, and if the planning department thinks that that is consistent with what the planning commission approved, it can be accepted by the planning department. If they can't come to an agreement, I guess then the planning commission should know that what it approved as submitted on 18-foot centers, 4-foot trees is what they're going to end up with.
Thank you, Marty.
You have all that, Matt? I'm counting on you.
I'm willing to make a motion. I just want to make sure from the rest of the planning commission, any concerns with doing it that way? Is there just any thoughts between you guys?
I don't have a problem doing it that way.
I say it is
The
natural.
alternative could be that they bring back the site plan as revised. They're not going to start building right away anyways without a PUD plan approved.
Okay. I will do my best on this one. All right. I will recommend to the board for a final site plan approval for phase 1 of North River Villas. Shall be conditioned upon addressing all issues and concerns prior to any development as stated by the Manic and Smith Group, the Monroe County Drain Commission, the Monroe County Road Commission, and the Bedford Township Fire Department review letters. At minimum, the landscaping is for phase 1 to be the 4-foot, 18-foot distance trees, pine, with a good faith that they can come to consensus, possible more buffering, and a condition of the board approval of the PUD plan. Did I muddy that up enough?
Yeah, you did pretty good.
You
Any
said it
support?
more clear than I did.
I'll
Support.
Dennis Jenkins supports. Mr. Guevara, call the roll.
Who was second on that, please? Support.
Dennis Jenkins.
Thank you. Mr. Fritz,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Yes.
Garvich, yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Anger,
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. On to public comment. Do we have anybody in the lobby, George? Oh, thank you, Mr. Schmidt, unless you want to hang out.
I think I'm gonna get back to my family. Hopefully you guys can too.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good night. Yep, bye.
Okay, do we have someone calling in?
Hello,
Hello, state your name and address and go ahead with your comments.
it's Gene Stock again, 8322 Twin Creek Circle. I wanted to call back just on a couple things. First of all, I wanted to thank you guys on the Planning Commission for how you handled our concerns here. And I'm sure Dave and I and a couple of the people that actually live straight back on the property, we can meet quick and get something ironed out. The other thing I wanted to mention is I had several residents contact me about the notice for public hearings and so on. So I want to just read an email that I sent to the township board members, and some of you may have received it. It said, I'd like to make the following recommendations in an effort to better communicate with the residents of Bedford Township. Bedford Township residents are currently notified concerning public notices of public hearings by posting in a local newspaper as required by law. Bedford Township currently uses the Monroe Evening News for posting notices. Since many Bedford Township residents do not get a daily newspaper anymore, and a lot of them don't get the Monroe News anymore, I'd like to suggest that Bedford Township consider posting notices of public hearings in the following way. The first one would be to post all notices on the Bedford Township website. The second one would be to post all notices to a Bedford Township Facebook page if you have one. And the third would be to post all notices to our real only local newspaper, the Bedford Press. This newspaper is mailed out to every home in Bedford Township every other week. And the second thing is currently Bedford Township publishes on the township website the current meeting agendas along with all the supporting documents for the township board meetings. This is very useful for Bedford Township residents, especially who are watching the meetings. Even like tonight, it would have been nice, because even Gail had mentioned, see what the supporting documents were. The township does post the agendas for the planning and zoning meetings, but it does not include the supporting documents for these meetings. And I'd like to recommend for future meetings that the township also begin including these supporting documents for these meetings on the township website. So I hope you take that into consideration and maybe even further discussion, because, people are so mistrusting these days, it seems, and they're saying, oh, these guys are trying to hide something, and I have to reassure them nobody's hiding anything. They're only required to post it for that. But I think it may, through transparency and communication, I also addressed this when I wrote to the board, to them, the Planning Commission, the zoning, and the members of the Communication and Media Commission members. So I hope you guys will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stock.
Thank you.
Anybody next?
Yes.
'Cause, Should we wait a minute or just move along? We can move along as some. Okay, information, what is that?
Muted.
Mute.
I was rattling my papers. I didn't want to.
Thank you, Karen.
For the 27th, we have nothing scheduled at this time, which is our next meeting. We will know early next week if we will have anything, as our packets, are prepared and sent out typically on Thursday the week before. So nothing for the 27th at this time.
Okay. Any comment among the staff or the commission members? None to be said. And do we have motion for adjournment?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Brad Helms seconds. Mr. Guevara, call the roll. Joe, you there?
Mr. Fritz? Yeah, Mr. Fritz?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Fritz?
Yes.
I think Joe froze again.
Like a giraffe chew through the DSL line. How about all those in favor say aye? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion passes. Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
Have
a
a
good night,
good
everyone.
Thank you. Have a
for
good
your
night.
patience.
Good job, Pat. You did a good job.
night.
Will.